Disclaimer. I wanted to record Indie Hacker interviews so that I would be able to listen to them as I drive or work out. I do not own this content, so please support the Indie Hacker community by reading the original interview via the link in the description. And if you're interested in joining an incredible community of entrepreneurs working to build online businesses, I can't recommend checking out indiehackers.com enough. Building an aggregator for classifieds that brings in $1,000 per mo. Tell us about yourself. What are you working on? My name is David, and I created Value Forest, an aggregator that makes it easier for people to find the best deals on South African classifieds. Anyone buying second-hand cars, phones, antiques, and more, can use Value Forest to find what they're looking for, whether it's for their business or for personal use. As of November 2016, Value Forest has 130,000 monthly unique visitors doing 200,000 searches a month, and it brings in around $1,100 in monthly income. What motivated you to get started with Value Forest? What were your initial goals? And how do you come up with the idea? Courtland from Indie Hackers for would-be founders struggling to find an idea. Try this approach. Take something you're interested in and build a useful tool. Start small, stay small. High voltage. I started it, I think the ideal way, with trying to scratch my own itch. Being a big fan of finding bargains on second cars or electronics, I thought it would be a nice project to create an aggregator for all the major South African classifieds and find a bargain. After building a very simple version of it, I posted on local forums to share it and get some feedback. The response was generally quite positive. I was working full-time as a back-end developer for an established company. And still living at home, so my expenses were fairly low. What did it take to build the initial website? How do you find the time to work, and what was your tech stack like? Because I enjoyed the project, I found the time mostly by working evenings after work and weekends, too. Thankfully I didn't really need any funding, because I was the only developer. My only expenses were server costs, which were very small. I started with some DigitalOcean servers and a basic PHP, MySQL stack. I initially didn't think too much about the specific features, instead just focusing on the core functionality. But I listened to feedback from early users as well. I took a very iterative approach, improving the website over months. The initial version was very slow for each search, as I was searching each classified site in real time, which obviously wasn't very practical. Thankfully I formed a connection with a very knowledgeable CTO of a big e-commerce website, and he gave me lots of great technical advice. One of those points was to use Apache Solr. It's basically a database and full text search engine in one. I also used VPS Dime, who provided a great $7 per month high-spec server to host it on. I then created Python-based scrapers to crawl the websites or APIS where available, and ingested these results into Solr. The PHP code started getting quite messy, but a friend recommended the Laravel PHP framework to me, and I rewrote a large portion of the website using Laravel to clean things up. What have you done to grow and market Value Forest? And how does your business model work? Initially I found users via the local forums I mentioned above, specifically, my broadband and Carbonite, plus a bit of word of mouth. Since then, I've relied primarily on SEO long-tail traffic. At some stage one did join the FB Start program, and I used the credit provided to advertise through Facebook ads. Value Forest's income comes from primarily two sources: affiliate revenue and advertising via Google AdSense. Each accounts for roughly 50% of the income. As of November 2016, revenue was close to $1,100 USD. My earnings are in South African rands, so it's tricky to be accurate as the exchange rate has changed quite a bit in the past 2 years. I see lots of founders working on aggregator businesses. Are there any challenges specific to this approach? Yeah, there are definitely challenges. Scraping often has negative connotations, and to keep things simple, a lot of websites would prefer that you refrain from doing this at all. Some go as far as including this in their terms and conditions, and in some cases this can result in legal action. For example, Craigslist Inc. v3 Taps Inc. What makes the relationship interesting is that a lot of websites in the classifieds industry make their revenue from advertising. If the aggregator becomes successful, it will be bringing a lot of free traffic to those websites. As the aggregator isn't the endpoint, the websites will still get their ad revenue, and possibly more of it. So I think some websites have mixed feelings about aggregators. Ideally, the aggregator should get permission. The other challenge with scraping is that as the websites change their HTML, th. E-scraper has to be updated, so an API or data feed for each website is usually preferable if one is obtainable. Again, this can prove difficult in my experience. This paper provides more insight, legal challenges and strategies for comparison shopping and data reuse. I'm inspired by some of big flight aggregators such as Momondo. I really like the way they bring flight data together and make it useful. My goal remains the same as when I started, to help people find bargains on classifieds in a convenient and enjoyable way. What are the biggest lessons you've learned so far? If you had to start over, what would you do differently? Courtland from Indie Hackers. Making your own mistakes leaves a lasting impression, but try to learn from other people's mistakes whenever possible. Smile with a halo. I'm quite happy with the way I've progressed. I think each journey is slightly different, and making mistakes is a part of it. It's great hearing other people's stories for motivation, but I believe you still have to make the mistakes yourself to truly internalize them. Arguably, I could have started exploring other markets by now, which I've now started working on. Also, quite often I've struggled with the conflict of whether I was making the best use of my time and focusing on the right priorities. What's been most helpful to you on your journey? What do you think your biggest advantages have been? Actually, my boss at the time was very helpful to me. He was an entrepreneur, and he encouraged me to pursue the website. Also, there's definitely been an element of luck. I didn't expect the SEO to work as well as it has. When I started, I only had a pretty basic understanding of it. I also went on a boot camp which led to an accelerator program that taught lean startup principles and gave me constant advice and feedback. This was very helpful. Finally, I've read some books with great lessons and advice that have helped me along the way. The 4-Hour Workweek was an interesting read, and I've enjoyed listening to quite a few of Tim's guests on his podcast. I also liked Rework by Jason Fried and DHH. And I have to include The Lean Startup by Eric Ries. What's your advice for aspiring indie hackers? My advice is probably similar to what most entrepreneurs who have been successful will say. Ship it. The logo doesn't need to be perfect, nor the name or domain name. Take a lean iterative process, and try not get stuck on paralysis analysis. Get a basic version out there, and get feedback. Also, try not to get too attached to your preconceived ideas of the product, service. Easier said than done. Where can we go to learn more? Check out the Value Forest homepage or follow @ValueForest on Twitter. You can also leave me a question or comment below. David Kaplan, creator of Value Forest. Want to build your own business like Value Forest? You should join the Indie Hackers community. Hugging face, we're a few thousand founders helping each other build profitable businesses and side projects. Come share what you're working on and get feedback from your peers. Not ready to get started on your product yet? No problem. The community is a great place to meet people, learn, and get your feet wet. Feel free to just browse. Courtland Allen, Indie Hackers founder.